Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. She forms part of my PR team, which is why she oversells me as well as she did. Now, a few years ago, if I had asked you which is probably the most attractive investment destination, you probably would have chosen Africa. There was the Africa Rising narrative of 3 or 4 years ago, which was due to the kind of the broad tectonic shifts that we were seeing globally. Back in 2014, the GDP growth for the continent averaged about 5.1%, but we have seen a decline. So 2016, it's anticipated to be around 1.4%. So have we retarded? Have we moved away from the land of opportunity to becoming one of the most challenging regions on Earth? I would rather think that Africa presents one of the most challenging economic opportunities on Earth today. This map shows you the scale of the continent. It shows you that you can fit 18 countries. And this is unusual because when one thinks of China, you think of China as being somewhat larger than the continent. But it fits 18 countries. It consists of 54 different countries on the continent. And that means we have 54, well, we have significantly more than 54 different languages, different cultures, and indeed different commercial objectives in those countries. So what has driven the dip in the growth on the continent? For sure, the oil exporting countries have suffered somewhat from the commodity slowdown that we've seen across the world. However, there are a few African powerhouses that are emerging. We have the country in which I work, which is Kenya. We have Burkina Faso. We have Senegal. And these powerhouses are all driven by a somewhat more diversified outlook on how they drive their economies. Indeed, we have Côte d'Ivoire, which is experiencing a GDP growth in the region of 8%. That, I believe, is one of the highest in the world. The other thing which is driving Africa's economic growth in the countries in which they exist is a younger population, a younger and fast-growing population. Diversified economies, which is moving away from the old commodities. We're seeing enhanced trade opportunities for these new powerhouses as trade continues to grow amongst the alternative economies. But there still are a few gaps in the growth. And these gaps are driven by lack of having access to essential services like health, like education, indeed food security. But as we forecast the growth for Africa, we have to be very careful that we don't leave anyone behind. Future developments on the continent has to be driven by partnerships with business, with governments, and indeed with civil society. Businesses have to have the courage to strike out in new directions. Businesses have to embrace a low-carbon approach, a more environmentally friendly business model. We have to find a way of turning poverty, of turning inequality, and of turning this lack of financial access to new economic and market opportunities. So let me bring to life what this means. We talk about having a transformative approach to business as a mobile phone company because we provide more than just access to a mobile phone, more than just access to a selfie. We provide access and opportunities We provide tools to help Kenyans to access security, to access education, and to access basic but needed healthcare. We talked about M-Pesa a moment ago. M-Pesa today, we're actually celebrating our 10th anniversary. Today, M-Pesa has 23 million customers out of a total population in Kenya of about 45 million people. We do 10.3 million transactions every day. 2/3 of Kenyans have never had a bank account and can see no reason why they have to have a bank account. Every second of the day, we issue 6 loans on a mobile phone. Financial inclusion on the continent, financial inclusion in the country is now 3 times what it was before we launched M-Pesa. It's now considered to be about 75% of the population are financially included. And 40% of Kenyan households today are using savings which are done on a mobile phone in order to meet financial shocks. Africa has one of the most vibrant ecological ecosystems, but at the same time, it is one of the most food-insecure regions in the world. Right now, Kenya has a drought, which is affecting 14 million people who are facing starvation, and we expect climate change to intensify. So let me give you a couple of examples of how we're addressing that problem. Kenya is famous for its tea. There are 500,000 tea farmers, like Jeffrey Kamau. Now, Jeffrey Kamau hates being paid in cash because it's dangerous and it's uncertain how much money he'll get. Using M-Pesa, he now receives his money. We've now connected 6 tea factories, which have now streamlined their operations and are delivering or managing revenues of about $9 million a year. Agnes Wakesa uses a thing that we call the Connected Farmer Alliance. And she's used that not only to communicate with other farmers, but she's used it to improve the productivity on the wheat farm that she has. Today, she has instant digital readouts. She has digital receipts. And the government of Kenya now has more visibility of the wheat reserves because of the system that we have put in place. Let's look at lighting the future. Less than 25% of Kenyans are currently on the grid. Sarah Rambui has waited for 54 years since Kenya has achieved independence. 54 years and she's still not connected to the grid. If she waits for another 54 years, she still will not be connected to the grid. So we have worked with a startup, one of our most famous startups, and that's M-Kopa, to give Sarah the opportunity to spend $35 on depositing for an M-Kopa lighting system. It powers her house, it charges her phone, it saves her money, it provides safety and security for her. More importantly, it allows her children to do homework in the dark. And today we have about 500,000 East African households who are connected to M-Kopa. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, Harvard Business Review Analytics and Ernst & Young has recently published a report which shows a new trend. It shows that businesses now have a lever which they can pull to increase their competitive edge. It shows that by harnessing the power of purpose, they can drive their performance and they can drive profitability, which will give them a distinct advantage, a distinct competitive advantage. These businesses, as they've shown, deliver 6 times the value to their shareholders than the companies that are purely focused on profit. That is transformational. It is the blueprint that should and must drive any business that are hoping to succeed in Africa. I'd like to thank you for your attention, and now I'm in Switzerland. I'm so pleased to see that I've managed to deliver that in exactly 10 minutes. Thank you so much. Thank you.